Hello, welcome back to the beautiful campus of Sonoma State University, where we're going to now tell you a little bit or talk to you about our next module, which is developing an economic unit of one. So this module really grows out of our last module, which is on relevant purpose. So once you establish your relevant purpose and understand what you're passionate about, then it's time to put it into action. So this module is kind of about putting it into action by becoming an economic unit of one. We're going to cover several things in today's session. We're going to try to define what we mean by economic unit of one. We're going to talk about personal branding, what that means. Viewing yourself as your best asset, your primary asset. And then we're going to end up with a little bit of talk on economic literacy. So we think it'll be a good session today. So Mark, could you start us off? Tell us what it means to you, this term economic unit of one.
So I think it probably is a bit helpful if I kind of give you a little bit of a background on the birth of an economic unit of one, because it really lays the foundation for, I think, further discussion. When I was working in the human capital, human resource, staffing, and placement area, I had the good fortune, as I mentioned in a prior session, of working with companies like Google and Sony Computer Entertainment, Bank of America, Cisco, the list goes on and on. And I started bucketing people, classifying people. And a few things really came to mind. One was a lot of young people just weren't ready. They had not cultivated a career plan, a career path to really make sure, A, that they got in the game, B, that they had the requisite skills in order to get a job, maybe hadn't done the appropriate levels of networking, of building a bridge towards education, from education to the working world. That was A. So some young people just weren't ready, a good percentage of them. Second of all, and by the way, the data that we disclosed in the overview supported that. Two, there was the second bucket that was as concerning. I would be sitting across the desk as, again, a guy, a leader, an executive in this space, and I'd be sitting across people that had storied careers, people that may have been in business for 20, 25 years.
Been successful.
Been and were to some degree, and they were either, a few things were happening. One was they either hated what they did, B, they had gotten laid off or were going to get laid off, or they had been out of work for a long period of time. And I'd sit across the table, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, of these kinds of people. And I'd look at their resume and have a good dialogue. And these were people, some of them made six-figure jobs, some of them been in the same company for many, many years. And I'd look at the resume, I'd look them in the face, and I'd say, oh my God, I cannot help this person. They had become irrelevant. They had not kept up with the requisite skills and experiences to really jump into the next category of their lives. In addition to that, they had also lacked certain levels of awareness as to what was going on outside of the ecosystem that they were living in. And then there was this third group, which was really exciting. And again, this happened a good amount down the Silicon Valley, but it happened all over Northern California and all over across the country. Keep in mind that we did business with companies that were national and international. And this third bucket that was really exciting was calling their own shots. And they might be in the learning environment. They might be technologists. They might be recruiters. They might be financial people. But they had skills and experience that everybody wanted. And in some cases, many of them were working at more than one company at the same time. In addition to that, they had this thought process of their careers that was a lot different than the traditional worker. They would think of themselves as something that was basically their own little business. And they were taking themselves...
Not what they're doing themselves.
Exactly. They were thinking of themselves as their own little business. This is what we've coined, an economic unit of one. And it really excited me, and I thought to myself, this is how every single worker in the United States and across the country needs to be thinking of themselves. We talked a little bit about this in prior sessions, but the days of working for the same company doing the same thing are gone. So if we can infuse these types of thought processes and behaviors and modeling into young people, very, very critical. So, the concept of economic unit of one is basically, I am my own business. I know how to take it to market, lifelong learning, lifelong development, market awareness, building networks, doing all the right things that a business does. And frankly, I just think most of these things are critical and mandatory the way it works today. Things are just changing too quickly.
Maybe in order to get there, to become an economic unit of one, to start branding yourself, to see yourself as your greatest asset, perhaps there's some base skills that you need in the economic world too, what we've been calling economic literacy. Are there some underlying things that go there in your opinion?
Well, I think you talk about financial literacy, and this is one. I mean, understanding how commerce works would be economic literacy. Some of the things that we're talking about market awareness and bringing your skills to market are economic literacy. But to me, the thing that's most concerning is just how many people don't really understand how financial mechanisms work. I read an article recently that said close to 50% of 8th graders don't know how to do fractions. That was astounding to me because that's some of the basis for financial literacy. But some of the more basic things like, I'm not going to spend more money than I make, understand how leverage works with dollars, understand the time value of money, understanding these kinds of things, because if you understand the time value of money, you can understand how a mortgage works when you buy a house. And a lot of us are going to buy a house. But to me, that's something that you really, really need to focus on is the economic elements, like some of the things that we talked about more broadly, but more importantly, how do numbers work? You know, have what I call accountability, the ability to count.
Yeah, and you're not talking about becoming, an accounting major or even a full-time business person.
Everybody needs to understand this. I even tell my son, who is now off to Berklee School of Music in Boston very shortly, you understand how investments work, understand the time value of money, understand how returns work, because that stuff is stuff that you can take with you wherever you go.
Well, we hope we've got you thinking about becoming an economic unit of one and encouraging your students to become economic units of one, to establish your personal brand. So just to give you an overview today, we tried to define what this concept of economic unit of one is really all about. I think we made a start.
Yeah.
We talked about personal branding and how to establish your personal brand, and perhaps even more importantly, how to begin to think of yourself as your most important asset. Not your money, not your status, you. And finally, a few thoughts on economic literacy. So thanks so much for listening today, and we urge you to tune in to the next time. Thank you.